Welcome to Shas Illuminated. Please enjoy the following shiur.
We are beginning tonight's shiur in the Siman Tov Reish Lamed. We are up to Sev Gimel, the third line on page Tzadi Beis, which is the page following 182. The Mechaber says in Sev Gimel, Hayu lo shnei defanos zo kineged zo, ubenehem mefulish. As opposed to the last case that we had in the Mechaber in Sev Beis, where there are two walls that were perpendicular, here in Sev Gimel we discuss a sukkah where there are two walls, but the walls are parallel, and there's an area that you can walk in between the two walls. The halacha over here is Osa dofen sheyesh berachvo arba tfachim umashahu. You make a wall that has a width of 4 tfachim plus a little more. Umamido bepachos mishlosha samuch leechad mishtei hadafanos ukshera. And you place this wall that's 4 tfachim plus within 3 tfachim from one of the edges of one of the walls, and the sukkah is kshera. And in this case also, to finish up the third wall, you have to make a tzuras pesach from the 4 tefach wall until the other wall. Sheyitin kona me'apas al hadofen ha'acher. They'll have to put a reed or some kind of wire from this pas arba'a all the way to the other dofen. V'yesh omrim she'ein zet tzarach tzuras pesach, and there are those who say that this case does not require a tzuras pesach. The Ramah writes, aval im ika dofen shiva below lavud. If instead of having a 4 plus tefach wall within 3 tefachim, which creates a distance of 7 tefachim, but if instead of that you had a wall that actually was 7 tefachim without factoring in the lavud, ein tzarach kan tzuras pesach at sof hakoso, then you would not need a tzuras pesach to finish up that middle wall. Hol v'ika dofen shiva, since there is a wall that's 7 tefachim, shehu shiur hechsher sukkah, which is the proper shiur of a hechsher sukkah. The kosher kein she'ein tzarach tzuras pesach she'adofen shlema. Certainly, if there's a complete wall over there, you would not need to have a dofen akuma. You certainly would not need to have a tzuras pesach. Umashe nagu b'tzuras pesach she'yesh lo defanos shlemos eino elo l'noi ba'alma. And that which they have 3 regular walls on the 4th side, they make a tzuras pesach, which we're saying over here is totally unnecessary. The reason they're doing that is for noi ba'alma. That's what the Ramah means when he says the koshkein she'ein tzarach tzuras pesach she'adofen shlema. If you have a complete wall in the middle between them, meaning you have 3 complete walls, you absolutely do not require a tzuras pesach, and therefore the minhag that people put a tzuras pesach on the 4th side, that's simply for beauty reasons alone. Says the Mishabura Sevkatan Yodalad Osa Dofen. We said over here when you have parallel walls that the third wall that you're going to make has to be 4 tefachim plus within 3 tefachim from one of the walls. And we said in the last sif that if you have perpendicular walls and you need to make a third wall, all you need to have is a wall that's 1 tefach plus within 3 tefachim. So the Mishabru is going to explain in Sivkot and Yudalid why over there only 1 tefach and here we need 4 tefachim. Umadil umala dai betefach, and that which above in the case of the perpendicular walls, that we only require the third wall to be a tefach, the hasam ashtei defanos smuchos lahadodi. That's because the 2 original walls that we had in the sukkah were next to each other. The alkain dai bashlishi betefach ba'alma, and therefore it's enough to make the third wall only a tefach. Masha'en kein bazeh, which is not the case over here in Sev Gimel. Dehem rechokim zemizeh. The 2 walls are distanced from each other. They are not perpendicular. They are parallel. Alkain sarach lasos dofen shal arba tfachim umashu. Therefore, you must make a wall that's 4 tefachim plus a little bit. Ulahamido bepachos mishlosha samuch ladofen echad, and you have to place it within 3 tefachim of one of the walls. The havi kalava, then we'll say lovet of those less than 3 tefachim. V'nelshav ki'ilu haya dofen shalem shel shiva tefachim samuch ladofen, and we'll consider it as if there's a complete wall of 7 tefachim next to the wall that it is being placed next to. Umemela gam bazeh yeshtei defanos smuchos ladadi k'molamala, and that creates 2 walls that are adjacent to each other like that above. So in Sif Beis, when we started with the adjacent walls, meaning the perpendicular walls, all you need is a tefach. Here you're trying to create the perpendicular walls, and therefore you'd have to have 4 tefachim plus within tefachim from one of the walls, and then you have created this right angle of these 2 walls. Sif Kotan Tesvav, V'gam Bazet Tzarach Lasos Tzuras Pesach. According to the first shita, the Mechaber brought down, you would have to have an additional Tzuras HaPesach besides the 4 tefach plus wall that's within 3 tefachim. Ayin b'Magen Avram shemistapik. Look in the Magen Avram where he is in doubt. Ulai dafku b'sukkah ketana kosher. Maybe in this case it's only going to be kosher when we're dealing with a small sukkah. Aval b'sukkah gedola shashlishis ruchoka mimena harbe. But if the sukkah is large and the third wall, meaning one of the original parallel walls, is far away from this new third wall that you put in, that's 4 tefachim plus within 3 tefachim from one wall, the third wall is distanced quite a while from that wall. Lo mahani afilu aidei tzuras HaPesach. So the Magen Avraham has a suffix that maybe a tzuras HaPesach will not even help in this case where the third wall is far away from the first two walls. Aval harbe achronim eskimu de'en l'chalik pazeh. But many achronim agree that there's no chiluk, and even if it is quite a distance away, a tzuras HaPesach will join together the 3 walls and it will be kosher. Sivkotan Tezayin is the second sheet that the Mechaber brought down, and that is V'yesh Omrim She'ein Tzarech Tzuras HaPesach. There are those who say that this case of parallel walls, where you add the middle wall of 4 tefachim plus within 3 tefachim of one of the walls, does not require an additional Tzuras HaPesach. The low dummy listed beis, it's not similar to Sif Beis. Sheshom Hatikum Bepas Rochav Tefach. There the tikkun was with a board that was only a tefach wide, shatikun hu garua. That's a tikkun, that's a lower grade tikkun, it's only a tefach. Al kain sarach tzuras HaPesach lahashlim ashir, therefore required over there an additional tzuras HaPesach in order to be mashlim and to make it a makom choshev. Masha'en kain kon sheyesh tikkun tov bepas arba, which is not the case over here with Sif Gimel, where you're starting off with a wall that's already 4 tefachim. Al kain sviruhu, therefore this shita holds the ein sarach tzuras HaPesach, that in this case you would not require a tzuras HaPesach. The Kasu Hachronim, the Yesh L'Hachmir Kesvara Harishona, the Mishabura ends off and says that the Achronim write that one should be Machmir like the first Shita, and should make a Tzuras HaPesach, joining together the new middle wall to the further wall, even in this case. Sivkotan Yud Zayin Aval I'ika. The Ramah then told us, but if the third wall that we just created was not a 4 tefach wall within 3, which makes it 7, but it was actually a wall of 7 tefachim, you would not need a Tzuras HaPesach. Says the Mishabura Yud Zayin, what Shlomo means to say, the Bazel L'Kuli Alma Ein Tzarech Tzuras HaPesach Afilu L'Deya Harishona. If this would be the case, that you have the middle wall of 7 complete tefachim, everyone would agree, even the first sheet that normally says you need a Tzuras HaPesach, he would be masking if you have a wall that's fully 7 tefachim in the middle, that you would not need a Tzuras HaPesach. The Mishabura continues in Zevkatan Yud Ches, and it's again explaining that psak of the Ramah, that if there is a dofen shiva without love, you do not need a tzuras HaPesach till the next wall. The Ramah said, Hol v'ika dofen shiva shu shir al shasukkah. Since you had a wall that's 7 tefachim, which is a shir al shasukkah, you do not require tzuras HaPesach. Says the Mishabura Zevkatan Yud Ches, Hol v'ika dofen shiva, even though it's very nice that the middle wall that you put in is a 7 tefach wall, but still the third wall is still distanced from that 7 tefach wall, even so you do not require a tzuras HaPesach. Ho'il sha'al kol ponim ika shalosh tefanos basukah. Since at the end of the day, you now have 3 walls of the sukkah, and therefore we do not require a tzuras HaPesach connecting the middle wall to one of the original walls that's further away. The Mishabur ends off and says a very important point, Mistabra, and it's logical, the dafka im harichok hulo yoser me'asara amos. It's dafka if from this 7 tefach wall, that's the middle wall, you don't have a full 10 amos between the edge of that wall and the next wall, then nershav zeh Pesach. Then we consider it like it's a doorway. It's an opening of the sukkah to walk in as long as it's less than 10 amos. V'ayin lekamon b'sifhei, but look later on in sifhei. But avada, if the richuk would be more than 10 amos, then that would be considered a pirza, and then avada you would need a tzuras HaPesach. Sekotan Yutes is going on the last point of the Ramah that said, certainly if you had 3 complete walls. The first case of the Ramah is you have 2 parallel walls, and you added a wall in the middle on one of the sides that's 7 full tefachim. We said you don't need a tzuras HaPesach, even though the 3 walls are now not complete. But if you had, says the Ramah, 3 complete walls that are all connected, then certainly you would not need to have a tzuras HaPesach. And the Ramah said the reason to make it Tzuras HaPesach is only for beauty reasons. So says the Mishavuras of Katan Chavtes, V'kol shekein she'ein tzrichim Tzuras HaPesach v'chuli, Rotzalomer bedofen revi'i. Again, the last point of the Ramah is saying that you would not need to close off the fourth side with the Tzuras HaPesach, and the people who are doing it, they're only doing it for beauty reasons. Continues the Mechaber and says, Dal b'med dvar mamurim. When is this then true that you need to have the pas arba'ah that we just discussed? Ba'usa sukaso b'makom she'ein dofen emtzoi kenegda. That's only when you make your sukkah in a place where there is no middle wall across from it, corresponding to it. And we'll see what that means shortly. But one who makes his sukkah in the middle of a courtyard, rachok midafnos hachatzer, even though the sukkah is distant from the walls of the chatzer, but he put his parallel walls inside a chatzer, afal pi she'ein lo elo shtei defanos zo keneged zo. Even though in this case as well, all you have is two walls that are parallel from each other, daila betikon hamatir b'shtei defanos ha'asuyos kemengam. In this case, all you would need is a wall, number 3, to be a tefach, just like we had in the case in Sibbeis, where you had perpendicular walls. So let's just explain the Mechaber, and then we'll see how the Mishabru is masbir. That which we said in Siv Gimel, that if you have parallel walls, you need a pas arba. That's only if you have parallel walls that are standing on their own outdoors without being surrounded by any area. But if they were made in a chutzner, then you don't need a pas arba. A pas that's a tefach would be enough, just like we were matir in the case of perpendicular walls by only having a tefach. So to over here, that would be enough. Explains the Mishabura in Sivkatan Chav be'emtza chutzner. We said, but if this parallel walls are inside a chutzner, mekor din zehu meharan. So the Mishabura, the source of this halacha is from the Ran. Look in the Magen Avraham where he argues on this Ran. The Daita, in his opinion, is the ein lahatir laharan. He's really masbir the Ran. You can't be matir lefi the Ran. Elo keshtei defanos zo keneged zo shelasukah him atzmam dafnos achatzer. It's not enough like the mashmos of the Mechaber, which is a simple reading of the Ran, that as long as the parallel walls are inside a chatzer, it's okay, even if the parallel walls are not the walls of the chatzer. Zakta Magen Avram, you can't be matir lefi the Ran unless the two parallel walls are the walls of the chatzer. When the two walls that you're discussing as parallel walls are the walls of the chatzer, then we'll say we'll use the middle wall of the chatzer as well to be the third wall of the sukkah. Even though really that middle wall of the chutzner is not really part of the sukkah, because again, we're using two parallel walls of the chutzner according to Magen Avraham, and the schach is on the further end of those walls, but where the back wall of the chutzner is, that's not really a wall of the sukkah, because there's no schach by that wall. So the Magen Avraham says that Lefi the Rambam can be matir in this case, where you have two parallel walls of the chutzner, and you have the back wall of the chutzner where there's no schach near it, but there is schach at the other edge of the area between the parallel walls across from this middle wall. We would not judge this case like we discussed in Sefimul as a sukkah that's made like a mavui. But not like the simple reading of the Ran and the Mashmos of the Mechaber that is just two regular parallel walls that are in a chutzner. So again, the Mechaber seems to be saying that we only require a pas arba'ah when it's a random two parallel walls. But if the two parallel walls are inside a chutzner, so then you only need a tefach of a wall. Zok the Magen Avram, this din of being more lenient by the chutzner is not where there are parallel walls in the chutzner. It's where the parallel walls are the chutzner. So the two outer walls that are parallel are the walls of the sukkah. They're the only two walls of the sukkah. Because the middle wall that connects it, that we're going to use to our benefit, is not really part of the sukkah, because the schach is connecting the two parallel walls on the further end of the sukkah, not on the part by the middle wall. But since it's using the walls of the chutzner, and there is a back wall that is there, that will lead us to a leniency that we don't need a pas arba. If you want to be machshir from the other side where the schach is, we could just put down a pas that is one tefach. As the Mishabura continues and explains in Zevkatan Chav Aleph, Dai lo betikon hamatir. The hainu that means to say sheyamed atefach meruvach bepachos mishloshet tefachim samach adofen, that you would place only a little more than a tefach within 3 tefachim from one of the walls. The hainu letzatshu keneged pesach hachatzer velo letzatshu keneged dofen hachatzer. Like we just said before, you would not put this tefach on the side where there is a wall of the chutzner. Rather, you'll put this tefach on the side where the opening of the chutzner is. So it's a 3-walled chutzner. The schach is between the 2 parallel walls, not by the 3rd wall which is connecting them, but the schach is on the other end of the parallel walls by the opening of the chutzner. But because you have the 3rd wall on the back not being used for the sukkah, that gives us, says the Magen Avraham, a leniency that you don't need a pas arba on the other end. If you want to close up and make the 3rd wall on the side of the opening of the chutzner past a little more than a tefach within 3 tefachim from one of the sides, that would be good enough because it is already closed up on 3 sides, although the middle wall of those 3 sides is not really part of the sukkah, but it makes it more lenient in terms of closing up the 4th side, that instead of needing 4 tefachim, 1 tefach will be enough. We'll stop here, and Amir Tashem will continue weiter with Sifhei in the next year.
You have been listening to a shiur from shasilluminated.org. For other shiurim on many topics, or to hear an Iyun shiur on any daf in Shas, including Ma'ar Mekaymas on each shiur, please visit www.shasilluminated.org. To order CDs or for more information, please call 203-312-SHAS. That's 203-312-7427, or email info@shasilluminated.org.